Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and this is my 2019 Mazda 3 Hatchback all-wheel drive. And I recently hit 75,000 miles on the vehicle. Now I bought this August 13th, 2020 with 3,000 miles on it, and I have now hit the 75,000 milestone. So I'm excited to share with you guys what has gone wrong, what has happened, how much I have paid for the last 25,000 miles. If you guys haven't seen my 50,000 mile update, I highly suggest you watch that first. But we're gonna get into a couple of things. I do wanna do a disclaimer just at the beginning of the video, top of the video, is that I love this car more than any car I've owned. I absolutely think it is one of the best cars made. The things I'm saying, yes, they are going to be negative, but overall, it has been an overwhelmingly positive experience with this car. I just want that to be known. But without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing you'll probably notice visually is this front leather bra that I put on the front. I bought it from Germany, had it shipped over, took about a month, and I'll leave a link to it in the description below. But I bought this because this car gets so many rock chips. The machine gray is a really, really thin paint. All of Mazda's paints are really, really thin. So I bought this. I really only put it on for road trips because it's really important that you take these off pretty regularly and wash under them, or else rocks can sit under them and scratch the paint even further. So I just put it on for this video, or I put it on for road trips, but that's pretty much it. Most of the time when I'm not driving out of state, I don't have this leather bra on, but I get a lot of questions about where I got it, so that link will be in the description below and the first link that you see. Speaking of road trips, I am very happy to announce that I have achieved a childhood dream of driving one car, this car, to all 48 states here in the United States. Now, I haven't driven to Alaska or Hawaii, but this car has been to all 48, which has been awesome, and it hasn't really given me any issues. However, in my travels, I have learned a couple of things about this car in the last 25,000 miles. First of all, while driving through Death Valley National Park, I learned that the radar cruise control will cancel around 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I can't really fault the system for that. That's pretty dang hot, and the radar cruise started working again when it cooled down to a measly 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So I did actually get an overheating warning. Now, the radar cruise sensors also will give up if you are driving into direct sunlight. So either at sunrise or sunset, if you are driving right into the sun, if you have to put the visor down and put glasses on, it probably can't see, and it will cancel the radar cruise below 20 miles an hour. So something that happens really commonly with these cars. Another thing that I learned in Seattle, Washington, is that the auto brake actually has a limit to the angle of which it will hold your car on a hill. I was driving up a hill and I could really only see the sky. I couldn't even see the road in front of me, and I was stopped at a light. I had my foot on the brake and it said it will not auto hold it because the angle is too much. Kind of interesting. The last thing that I learned about this car is actually that the center console does come off rather easily. If it pops off, you can just pop it right back on. As for the interior, besides the initial scratching that I talked about way in my 10,000 mile update, the interior plastics scratch really easily. That continues to be an issue. However, the rest of the interior has actually held up pretty well. There is a scratch on my steering wheel. However, this is, of course, user error. Don't know how it happened, but it's there. But overall, I think the interior still functions really, really well, and I don't see any other major quality control issues after 75,000 miles. Unfortunately, the only major issue that I have had with the car is under here. It's actually with this specifically, the battery. I was in Austin, Texas, and I let the car sit for a couple of days while I went to the Formula One race. I didn't think much of it. Car sat for maybe 2 days without being started or anything. And so on the Monday after the race, my girlfriend and I came outside, packed the car, checked out of the hotel, and it gave me this warning. Key start malfunction, please have the vehicle serviced. What ended up happening was the battery had completely died. It was the original battery that came in the car, so a word to the wise, I would highly recommend swapping out your battery. Every 3 years seems to be a good interval. Sometimes maybe even 2 years. I've heard of people having shorter lifespans. The reason I bring it up and say that it's the first major failure was A, I was over 1,000 miles away from home and I was stranded for a couple of hours until a tow truck came with a jump pack and we were able to jump start it. But the main reason why I mention it, I know that's just like a regular maintenance thing that should happen and not the end of the world, is that the car didn't tell me that it was a dead battery. I just knew because the horn sounded funny, but the lights still came on and the starter motor sounded weird because I've had cars that are very analog and like that. Well, this car is very digital, and so it was telling me key start malfunction. I thought maybe it was the button was broken, maybe the key was broken, but it actually ended up being the battery. And when I took it in to get serviced down in Austin, Texas and get this new battery, they told me that when the battery dies, it'll trigger whatever warning comes first. So that was a key start malfunction, but it's triggered other warnings before. So if you're getting a strange warning and the car isn't starting, I would highly recommend checking the battery first, because even though there's a little battery light on the gauge cluster, that light never came on. So it was very, very frustrating because the car wasn't telling me exactly what it needed. So I had to go by instincts. I called Mazda Roadside Assistance. They were not very helpful. So I called actually my dealer back here in Illinois, Mazda of Naperville, and they helped me troubleshoot a couple of things and we ended up getting it going. So huge thank you to them. But so far, this is the first time I've gotten stranded by this car. And so because this video is covering between 50,000 miles and 75,000 miles, there is a big milestone in between, and that is 65,000 miles is a big milestone for these cars. They recommend a diff fluid swap, they recommend a trans fluid, coolant, all of those fluids being swapped out, and so that is going to be a little bit pricey. However, speaking of pricey, today I did the very unfortunate math to see how much I have spent just maintaining this car over 75,000 miles. Without any further ado, I have spent $5,663.84 in just maintenance. Now, $1,387.31 of that is just the oil changes. So about 25% of that $5,000 is just in oil changes. But since the last video, we did do the diff service. That was $173. The fuel system flush was $250. 2 tire rotations for $52 together. A transmission fluid flush was $350. A coolant flush was $230. Alignment was $110. The new battery, as I mentioned before, was $211, and then new spark plugs at $230. Now, the spark plugs aren't required until 75,000 miles, and they give you a window between 75,000 and 100,000. I did it on the early side. Again, those transmission fluids, they start recommending at 65 to about 85 in that area. So you do have a window to play with. It's not a hard deadline. But the reason I say that is that if you're thinking about selling your Mazda 3, you might want to do it before 65,000 miles and all of those recommendations start coming in. Just some food for thought. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I always take it to the Mazda dealer. This has never been to a solo mechanic shop or anything of that nature. And so that's really the only major update I have for you. In 75,000 miles, one dead battery is nowhere near the end of the world. I love this car. It does a great job. I do normally put it on snow tires if you're curious. I know it's snowing. I do have snow tires. I made a whole video about that if you're curious about what snow tires I run on this. Here's a clip of me using those snow tires because it's probably the most badass I will ever look and this car will ever look, so I will reuse this clip until I can't any longer. But I really, really, truly love this car. I'm so happy with my purchase. It has taken me places that some Jeeps would even tremor at. I have driven this thing many, many miles off-road. I even three-wheeled it on a rock, and this thing has held up beautifully. I love this thing. I really, really do. And I can't wait to share with you guys what has gone on at my next update at 100,000 miles. That's up next. If you have any questions about my car, please leave it in the comment section down below. But until 100K, take care, guys.